Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey, everyone.
Get ready, because today, we're really digging into some fascinating source material. It's all about Amelie from Death Stranding.
Yeah, one of maybe the most central and, let's be honest, confusing characters in that game.
Totally. So our mission today is basically to sift through all this info and pull out the really key things, the stuff you need to know about her.
Especially if you've played it, you know she's vital, but figuring out the why and how, it's tricky.
It really is, like navigating the beach itself sometimes. So we're going to structure this as a countdown. We've pulled out 10 surprising things these sources reveal about Amelie.
Sounds good.
And just quick context for anyone maybe less familiar, Death Stranding, post-apocalyptic U.S., creepy BTs, you're reconnecting scattered cities.
And it all revolves around Sam Porter Bridges trying to reach Amelie.
Exactly. But as you said, that journey, it's tied way deeper into who Amelie actually is than it first seems.
Oh, absolutely. The sources really peel back those layers. She's much more than just, the objective.
Definitely makes the whole story click. Okay, before we dive into number 10, just a quick ask.
Oh.
If you like what we do here, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really, really helps us keep making these deep dives for you.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Awesome, thanks. All right, let's get into it, starting with number 10. Point 10. The name Amelie is a lie. So right off the bat, the sources say her name itself is basically a giant clue.
It really is. It's one of the most direct hints the game gives you. The sources spell it out. Amelie isn't just a name. It's a mix.
A mix.
Yeah,
right.
portmanteau. It combines ame, that's French for soul, with the English word lie.
Soul. Lie. Wow, okay. Doesn't get much clearer than that.
Exactly. And the sources really stress why that's important. It points to her being this non-physical, soul-like thing, mostly on the beach.
Right.
But it also screams deception. It underscores the whole mystery around who she is, what she wants. Her entire purpose is kind of flagged as a lie from the start.
So rule 1, don't necessarily trust what you see or hear about Amelie.
Pretty much. It's a warning label built right in.
Okay, that sets a heck of a tone. Moving on from the name game to point 9. She is the goddess of a personal afterlife. We know beaches are a big deal in the game, but Amelie's is different.
That's right. So everyone has their own personal beach, right? That weird limbo space between life and death.
Yeah, that psychic zone.
Well, Amelie's beach, it's not just one of them. The sources call it the master beach.
The master beach. Okay, what does that actually mean?
It's like the central hub. The sources use this really cool metaphor. They say it's like the heart, and it pumps blood through the other beaches, which act like capillaries.
Whoa. So it's not just connected, it's the core system that everything else branches off from.
Exactly. And because it's the central nexus, and she controls it, the sources say this essentially makes her the goddess of the afterlife.
Goddess of the afterlife, that's huge.
It is. It gives her this incredible influence over, souls, the transition, the whole shebang. It kind of redefines what a personal afterlife means if she's at the center of it all.
That totally changes the game's whole cosmology.
All right, shifting slightly but connected. Point 8 tells us she has a physical body in the real world. Bridget, this one blew my mind when I first learned it.
Yeah, it's a massive reveal. The sources confirm that. The character you meet early on, President Bridget Strand, who you think is Amelie's mother.
Yeah.
Not her mother. Turns out, Bridget is actually Amelie's physical body. Her.
Her ha.
Right, and Amelie, the one on the beach, she's the soul, the ka.
Ha and ka. That sounds specific. Like, where's that from?
It is specific. The sources point out it's taken straight from Egyptian mythology. Ha for the physical body, ka for the, spiritual double or soul.
Okay, so that explains their connection.
Yep.
And the sources mention why they couldn't be mother and daughter biologically.
It stated Bridget had uterine cancer, which made it impossible for her to have children. So that biological fact, confirmed in the sources, really locks it in. They're two halves of one being, separated between the living world and the beach. Amelie is born on the beach, she's the soul part. And Bridget is the physical part, walking around in the real world.
Wow, that explains why Amelie only appears as a hologram most of the time. Her body is Bridget.
Exactly. And this split, this Haka thing, it links directly to our next point, point 7. Sam's power comes directly from her. Sam's whole repatriation thing, coming back from death, that's core gameplay.
Totally central. You rely on it constantly.
Well, the sources are clear. That's not Sam's own power. He wasn't born with it or anything. It was given to him by Amelie.
She gave him the power to cheat death. How?
There's a key flashback the sources detail. Baby Sam actually died. And Amelie, she reached into the seam, that watery void place.
Between the worlds, yeah.
And she literally pulled him back, retrieved his soul, essentially.
She pulled him back from the brink of the afterlife itself.
That single act, that's the source of Sam's power. His resilience, his ability to repatriate, it all comes from her intervention. It ties his life, his survival, directly to her and her power over the beach.
So their connection isn't just like mission-based or emotional. It's fundamental to his existence. Absolutely. It's the source code of his survival.
Okay, that adds so much weight. Now, this next one, this flips the entire game on its head. Point 6. The hero was her unwitting agent of apocalypse. Sam's big quest, reconnecting America. That wasn't the real goal.
According to the sources, not even close. That whole massive, dangerous trek Sam makes, linking knot cities, hooking everyone up to the chiral network.
Yeah, bringing America back together.
It was actually Amelie's plan all along, her grand design to trigger the final extinction, the last stranding.
Wait, what? So connecting everyone, that was bad.
It was the key to her plan. The sources explain that by linking every person, and crucially their beaches, to her master beach through the network, Sam was basically handing her the keys. He was concentrating all that, like, cosmic energy right where she needed it.
So he was building the weapon she needed to end everything without realizing it.
Exactly. The act of connection meant to save people was actually the mechanism for ultimate destruction. A really dark twist.
Oh, wow. That duality is intense. Yeah. The heroism was actually enabling the apocalypse.
It really hammers home themes about intention versus outcome, you know? How building bridges can sometimes lead to, well, something else entirely.
And this whole extinction thing, it's not just Amelie being uniquely evil, right? Which brings us to point 5. Her role as an extinction entity is a natural recurring cycle.
Right. This is a crucial point the sources make. Her being an extinction entity, an EE, it's not presented as just her specific brand of villainy. It's framed as something bigger, like a natural force.
Natural, like a hurricane or an earthquake.
Kind of, yeah, but on a planetary existential scale. The sources reference Hartman's research, you know, the guy constantly dying and reviving.
Yes, studying Leech.
His study suggests there have been at least 5 previous E's in Earth's history, and these line up with the big mass extinction events.
So the Death Stranding isn't the first one, it's just the latest.
Exactly. And get this, the sources mention what some of these past EEs were discovered to be. A woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
A Neanderthal. Even a trilobite.
A trilobite EE. Seriously, that little ancient sea creature.
Seriously. It suggests that an E emerges from whatever the planet's dominant species is at the time, basically to hit the reset button, to clear the stage for the next cycle.
So Amelie's role, however destructive, is part of this vast, almost impersonal cosmic cycle. Not personal malice, but planetary maintenance in a terrifying way.
It definitely reframes her, makes her less of a straightforward villain and more of a, well, a necessary, tragic part of this huge cosmic process.
Necessary but devastating. Okay, speaking of deep history, let's talk about her inspiration. Point 4. She was directly inspired by a legendary Japanese sorceress queen.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The sources explicitly state Amelie is a modern reimagination of Queen Himiko.
Himiko, from ancient Japan.
That's the one, a semi-legendary shaman queen, ruler of the Yamatai kingdom. The sources draw some really strong parallels.
Like what?
Okay, so like Himiko, Amelie's a ruler inheriting power from Bridget. Both communicate from afar. Amelie uses holograms. Himiko supposedly used a single male attendant, which the sources kind of link to Die Hardman's role. Both bring some kind of stability through connection Amelie with the chiral network, Himiko supposedly by unifying tribes. And the biggest one...
the spirit connection.
Exactly. Himiko was famed for sorcery, communicating with spirits. Amelie has that fundamental link to the beach, the afterlife, controlling BTs. It's a clear parallel.
And didn't the sources mention Himiko's name, too?
They did. Himiko often translates to daughter of the sun, and she claimed descent from a sun goddess tied to the sea and afterlife.
Which lines up perfectly with Amelie being the goddess of the afterlife and her connection to the beach.
Right. It shows how these futuristic sci-fi ideas in the game are really grounded in these ancient myths and archetypes. Super cool detail.
It really is. Okay, we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah.
Point 3. She embodies a conflict between fate and free will. So even as this cosmic reset button, she's conflicted.
That's kind of her core tragedy, according to the sources. Her fundamental purpose is extinction. It's like her cosmic job description as an EE. That's her fate.
Right. Can't argue with cosmic fate.
Well, maybe you can bend it a little. The sources point out that she, and potentially other EEs, show they can bend the rules.
How does she manage that? How do you bend a cosmic imperative?
It seems to come down to connection. Her growing attachment to the world, and especially her bond with Sam, it creates this huge internal conflict.
Ah, the human element messing with the cosmic plan.
Exactly. This struggle between her destructive destiny and her feelings, her connections, it allows her to delay the inevitable, to put off the apocalypse.
So she's literally trapped between her nature and her nurture, in a cosmic sense, wanting to preserve the thing she's meant to destroy.
Precisely. The sources frame her as this incredibly tragic figure caught in this impossible bind. It makes her so much more complex than just the bad guy.
Yeah, definitely more compelling. Okay, now for something a bit different. Point 2. Fan theories connect her to quantum physics and black holes. The fans have gotten really creative trying to figure out, huh?
Oh, yeah. The community has some wild but really interesting theories. The sources highlight one big one, that Amelie isn't actually supernatural.
Not supernatural, then what?
The theory posits she's actually get ready for this, a crazy, powerful quantum computer AI.
A quantum AI?
Yeah. And operating from maybe inside a black hole? Possibly one formed from the moon. Some versions go that far.
An AI in a black hole.
Yeah.
Running the afterlife.
Yeah.
Okay, that is wild. What's the evidence for that?
Well, theorists point to things like Amelie saying, Sam, I am the beach. They take that literally like she is the computational structure.
Okay.
And the big one, the QPID, the little necklace thing Sam uses.
Right, to connect to the network.
The sources note it clearly displays the Schwarzschild radius formula. That's real physics. It calculates the size needed to make a black hole, its event horizon.
Huh. That's a very specific real-world physics thing to put on a key game item.
Exactly. So the theory is, maybe that's a hint, that the connections, Amelie's power, the beach itself, maybe it works using principles related to black holes, quantum mechanics, manipulating space-time, trying to find a sci-fi logic behind the metaphysical stuff.
It's the players trying to bridge that gap between the game science and its magic, basically.
Yeah, grappling with the inexplicable, trying to ground it. It shows how much the game makes you think.
For sure. Okay, we've made it to number 1, and this one feels really personal. Point 1. Her existence is a metaphor for Hideo Kojima's personal grief.
This is where the sources connect Amelie and the game's core themes, right back to the creator, Hideo Kojima. Her whole deal, this mix of destruction and the desperate need for connection, it's seen as reflecting Kojima's own personal struggles.
Struggles with what?
With grief, loss, loneliness, that fear of separation. The sources mentioned his own writings, like his book, The Creative Gene, where he talks about these anxieties, especially how his father's death impacted him.
So the themes in the game, death, connection, isolation, they come from a really personal place for him.
It seems so. The sources suggest these aren't just abstract ideas he put in the game. They're deeply felt personal themes woven right into the story, into characters like Amelie.
So Amelie, in a way, becomes this artistic expression of his own internal world. His way of exploring those feelings.
That's the idea presented in the sources. It makes Amelie and the whole game feel like this incredibly personal statement about navigating loss and trying to find connection in a fractured world.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer. Makes her character feel even more significant. Okay, let's recap quickly. 10 things about Amelie. Her name is Lie, Soul, and Lie. She's the goddess of the Master Beach, controlling the afterlife connection. Her physical body is actually Bridget, the president.
Sam's power to return from death, that was a gift directly from her. And his whole mission to connect America, that was actually her plan to start the apocalypse.
Right, and she's an extinction entity. But part of a natural recurring cycle, going back eons even, involving trilobites. She's inspired by the ancient Japanese Queen Himiko.
And she's caught in this tragic conflict between her destructive fate and her feelings, her connections. Fans even theorize she might be a quantum AI in a black hole.
And finally, her existence reflects Hideo Kojima's own personal experiences with grief and loneliness. It's a lot.
It really is. These sources show she's so much more than just an antagonist. She's like the absolute pivot point for the game's world, its mythology, its themes, and she's incredibly tragic.
Absolutely. A nexus of myth, sci-fi speculation, philosophy, and deeply personal art. Definitely one of the most complex characters out there.
And thinking about that bigger picture, you know, the sources talk about ease being this natural cycle, this destructive renewal, but they also hint at the game using things like, you know, negative mass or multiverses for its physics.
Yeah, that mix of ancient cycles and cutting-edge speculative science.
Right. So here's something to maybe chew on. what does that blend tell us about how we try to understand things that are just beyond us? Whether it's cosmic events, environmental change, even like runaway technology. When science tries to explain the really inexplicable, does it almost start to become, well, a new kind of mythology itself?
That's a heavy thought. Does science become myth when it hits the wall of the unknown? Definitely something to think about. Well, that's our deep dive into the sources on Amelie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope connecting all these different threads has helped make sense of this incredible character. Keep thinking about those connections. And hey, remember what Sam Porter Bridges would say.
Keep on keeping on.
Exactly. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.